Last week's episode was all about questions. I want to start this week's episode with a question. What are you doing to make sure you live your life as a single person the way you want to live it? Or let me put it another way. What guardrails do you have in place to protect yourself from oncoming traffic and to keep yourself from going off a cliff? Hey, this is Todd. Welcome to the Thrive Singles Podcast. Whether you're single again or still single, stop hating being single and learn to thrive. And welcome back to another week of the Thrive Singles Podcast. Last week, we talked about the questions you need to ask yourself. So once you've asked these questions and you figured out who you want to be and what you want your life as a single to look like, then it's time to put some guardrails in place to make sure it turns out the way you want it to. I started this episode with a question. I also want to start by making an assumption. I assume you have a set of beliefs which lead you to uphold certain morals and strive towards certain goals. Now, I don't know exactly what your beliefs, morals, and goals are, but I know you have some. We all do. I'm going to further assume that since you're reading this blog, that your beliefs, morals, and goals are in many ways similar to mine. You're probably a Christian, and your beliefs lead you to a morality that says sex is for married people. So, if your goal is to remain pure and abstain from sex until you get married, that's a noble goal, it really is. But it's a lot easier said than done. So if you've made that your goal, how do you get there? Willpower is not enough. Not if you're serious about your sexual purity. In that case, you'll need to have some guardrails in place. And some of these things I'm going to suggest may seem a little like overkill, but it's better to err on the side of caution and have guardrails that may seem a little overprotective than guardrails that are ineffective and don't offer enough protection. One guardrail I didn't have in place when I was single the first time, but I made sure to have in place my second time around, was to never be alone with somebody I was interested in at my place or theirs. As a younger single, I made that mistake, but I vowed to not make the same mistake again. After my divorce, I made a rule for myself. I put a guardrail in place that I wouldn't be alone with a woman at my place or theirs, especially if it was somebody I found really attractive. And that rule, that served me well. We are by nature sexual creatures. If we allow ourselves to be alone with somebody we find attractive at our place or theirs, it's way too easy to start taking things further and further and further. If you're serious about sexual purity, why put yourself in that position? Being alone with no accountability will more likely than not lead you to compromising your beliefs. Accountability. That's another good guardrail to have in place. Give a few carefully selected people who you know well permission to check up on you. Let them know where you're going and with who. Let them ask you some tough questions. Let them check up on you, even in the middle of a date. Let them get all up in your business. Remember, your guardrails are yours to create. You know your strengths and weaknesses, but you do have blind spots, though, so err on the side of caution. I'm not saying you have to live your life like a monk or some Puritan zealot straight out of the 17th century. But I will say that if staying pure is your goal, your dating should look a lot different from what is accepted as normal today. And nowhere is this more true than when it comes to how much physical interaction is appropriate. Look, I'm a real touchy-feely person, right? And I'm a very sexual person. So I set my guardrails at a very safe distance. Kissing, hugging, and holding hands, that wasn't a part of my typical date. In fact, besides the woman I ended up marrying, I kissed on a date exactly once. And that was with someone I'd been hanging around with for quite some time and had become very attached to. And yeah, that means it was almost 6 years without any kissing. Was that hard to do? You better believe it. Was it worth it? Yeah, absolutely. If I had it all to do over again, would I do it that way again? Absolutely. That's another guardrail that served me extremely well. Nobody wants to marry a jerk. Nobody wants to marry someone they can't trust. So we all have a goal to marry well. Every single person I know who wants to get married wants to marry somebody loving, faithful, kind, good-natured. So what kind of guardrails can put you in a place to give you the best chance of not marrying the wrong kind of person? Guardrail number 1, take your time. A huge mistake I see people make is moving too fast. It takes time to learn what a person really is like. Go through the process of getting to know them over a long period of time, and without all the physical, emotional, or romantic entanglement that defines most people's dating habits. There will be a time for romance. That time is later. Another good guardrail is to delay romance. Wait till after a person's proven that they are a quality person and a good fit for you. Too often people let the romance tail wag the relationship dog. Contrary to popular belief, romance and sex do not help you decide if somebody is right for you. More than likely, when you're enjoying the romance and the sex with somebody, you're not looking at them objectively. In fact, you don't want to hear anything bad about the person you're having all that fun with. As a society, we've got it exactly backward. We get all romantic and sexually involved with somebody, then we get married, then we start finding out all the things we don't like about them and all the ways we're not compatible. How about trying something different this time around? How about taking time to find out who somebody really is? Then, if they're a good fit, then marry them. Then work hard at, the romance and the sex. Another guardrail, make a list. How do you decide if somebody's a good fit for you? You compare them to what you have on your list. You do have a list, right? You did listen to my episode about compatibility and making a list, and you actually made a list, right? You need to know what kind of person you're looking for. I mentioned this concept a lot. I mentioned it in several different episodes, and I do this because it's important. I'm not going to get into all the details here today, but be sure, go back and listen to the episode or read the post about making a list. Another goal you should have as a single person is to be safe. Be careful out there. Stay safe. We live in an age of gigolos, gold diggers, human trafficking, sexual predators, and date rape drugs. You need to have good guardrails in place to keep yourself safe. Guardrails like safety in numbers. Before you go out on a date alone with somebody you don't even hardly know, it's best to have lots of interactions with them in a group setting. You can maybe even go on a few group dates or double dates first. Get to know them a little bit before you go out alone with them. Another good guardrail is your location. When you do go out alone together, make it someplace as safe as possible. Make it someplace well lit, with lots of people. Avoid dark corners and isolated places. Another good guardrail is your friends. Stay connected with your friends. Besides holding you accountable, like I mentioned earlier, your friends can also help keep you safe. Let them know who, what, when, where. Let them check in with you while you're out on a date. Do whatever it takes to be safe. Look, guardrails are about ending up where you really want to go safely and avoiding danger. It does much less damage when you run up against a guardrail than it does if you run into oncoming traffic or fall off a cliff. Setting up your guardrails is not something you do haphazardly. Set up your guardrails thoughtfully, carefully, and put some time and effort into it. Make sure they get you where you want to go and keep you away from where you don't want to end up. So, till next time, go back and listen to last week's episode about questions. Ask yourself who you want to be, what you want your life as a single to look like. Then spend some time figuring out what guardrails you need in place to help you safely get there. And as always, till next time, thrive on. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. See you next week. Till then, be sure to subscribe and go check out my extensive archive of past posts at thrivesingles.com. And thrive on. Oh, thrive. Yeah, come alive. There's more to life. You gotta grow, you gotta thrive. Whoa, whoa, you gotta thrive. There's more to life than to just survive. You gotta grow, you gotta thrive.